I am ready. That's awesome. We are going to get started, and today, welcome. How are you?
Great.
Today we're talking about atomic habits. And by raise of hands, who in the room has read Atomic Habits?
Started.
You started it? Awesome.
I've listened to podcasts about this book.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, this is a great book. As always, this is just a high level of this book and a jumping off place for us to have discussions. So I highly recommend reading this book. It's on Audible. So one of the fun things that I like doing whenever I listen to books most often. Most often I'm doing, and so I get everything on Audible. But there is something physical about having a book, and I love having a book so that I can put sticky notes in it, and hey, how are you? Welcome. So yeah, today, like I said, today we're doing Atomic Habits, and so I love listening to the books because I can put it in my ears, and I can go running. I can listen to stuff as I'm running or as I'm going places. But there is something about having a physical book that lets you flip to a specific spot that I love. So if you ever get the opportunity, I highly recommend buying the book and the podcast, and that's great. Let's see if I can, there we are. Okay, thanks to REA Nexus for sponsoring the use of our space. And the next week's meeting is right here, same time, same place. If you are interested in having a text go out about that, then check on this QR code right here, and that's going to be great. So last week we talked about the book $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi, and there's a really exciting thing. He is releasing his next book, $100 Million Leads, in September. Check out his stuff if you're interested. I'm very excited about that. But I wanted to talk about last week for a second. Let's go through, is there one thing you remember from that book, or is there something that you did with that information this last week, right? Is there anything that you guys did or thought about from last week? So if you're in the comments, then down in the comments section, let us know. If, right here.
Yeah, I can say I'm working on my website, and so whenever I was talking, on my website, I gave, basically I put down I'm saving you time, I'm saving you, you know how he has those?
Yeah, all four of those levers, right?
Yeah, the four levers,
yeah.
Right? And so I looked at that, and then I worded what I worded so that I could make
awesome.
it so that they had high value because the four levers were low.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Right here.
Yeah, I remember our discussion about how to sell a brick, and that having a different perspective about what it is that you're selling and what it can be used for.
Cool.
I actually have thought a couple times about how important it is that what you offer has to be so good it's dumb for them not to take it. And so I've just been thinking about that a few times, and I don't have a specific place that I'm applying it yet, but it's running around in my brain. Make sure that it's something that's so good they'd be dumb not to do it.
Okay, I love it. Sounds awesome. Do you have anything? Okay, no worries. Sounds great. Okay, so let's move on to this book. Tiny changes or habits make a significant impact on a person's productivity, success, and happiness over time. So he talks about how making little changes and little things will allow us to get so much more out of life, right? It's the compounding effect of making a whole bunch of little changes. So I wanted to watch this little bit here. I love Alex Hormozi. I think he's great. And he actually talks about this book in this clip. So,
story. So there was a guy who started at the first gym with me, same day. All right, and we've been friends since then. And I started my gym, and then he started his gym, and he started a chain of gyms, so we went in parallel, all right? And he ended up selling those gyms, and he wanted to go online. He was like, dude, I need to build like a brand. And I was like, dude, you just need to start posting, short form stuff, making stuff that's valuable. He posted every day for 6 months, and then one video took off, and then the next video took off, and the next video took off, and then all of a sudden now, he's making $100,000 a month from the content that he was making. He'd already been doing business for 9 years. And then all of a sudden it took off, and he messaged me. He was like, I'm super grateful that you told me to do that. And so he did the post and he did the reach outs. And what ended up happening is that earlier on, he would have videos that would start taking off. He would start doing reach outs, he'd start making sales, and then he'd make some money, and then he would slow down. And then all of a sudden you get in scarcity mode once he was like, oh shoot, there's no money coming in. And then you start making content, start doing reach outs again, and then you make money again. And he was like, dude, how do I break the cycle? And what we did was we shifted what he was focusing on, because he was focusing on the sales he was making, he was focusing on the money he was making, rather than focusing on the process. You are not successful in my eyes because whenever you see some outcome, you stop the activities, which means you don't have the trait of consistency. I was like, the reason you aren't where you want to be is because you can't do things repeatedly. And so most people can't do one thing over and over again. You need to be able to do the doing without seeing the result of your doing. And you have to keep doing it. And if you can keep doing things independent, and this is both ways, if it goes really well, you keep doing the thing that got you there. And if it's not going well, yet, you keep doing the thing so that you get good enough that one day it will. And that's the shift that most people don't make. And I think that's why most people just stay poor. And the reality is that if you can commit to the actions and the behaviors and the traits that you will grow through doing, then at the end of this process, a decade later, you will be the type of person who can do something for a long period of time and wait. And I promise you that if you have that trait, money will never be a constraint in your life. And this is from Atomic Habits. Every winner and every loser have the same goals. So when you measure yourself by having this external thing, and people are like, set goals. Everyone wants to be rich. Everyone wants to have a six-pack. Your goals don't make you unique. It's the activities that you do that make you unique. The goal of the winner is to commit to the activities. The goal of the loser is to commit to the goal. 52% of 18-year-olds, high school seniors, think they're gonna be millionaires by 25. The world is going to be shook. Many of you will fail. And that's because most of you have the same goal. 52% you think you're gonna be a millionaire, right? People are making
okay. So there's a couple of pieces in there that he was talking about, right? He was saying, and he pulled it right from this book. He said, people who focus on the process, people who focus on the steps to get where they're going will win. People who focus on making a goal, it will never happen, right? So anyway, why do tiny changes make the difference? Any thoughts on that? One, small changes are manageable, right? It's easy to start something small. It's easy to change something little. And small changes accumulate. Small positive changes set off chain reactions that facilitate other related good habits. These compound, leading to significant overall improvement. Number 3, small changes are sustainable. It's often easier to stick to small changes over time because they require less effort and motivation. Large, dramatic changes often lead to burnout or discouragement, and especially if the results are not seen immediately. Small changes shift your identity. Small wins through tiny changes help you build self-efficacy and a new identity, which further facilitate habit change. So, I want to talk about this with you guys. It's your turn. Considering the principle that small, consistent actions can lead to significant life improvements over time, I want you to each identify 3 small, achievable habits or changes that you believe, if consistently applied, could positively impact your life in the long run. Okay, so I want you to think of 3 things. Let's do 2 or 3 minutes here. Think about that thing. In the comments down below, I want you to post one of those things, right? And then here in the room, we're going to talk about the one thing that you think is going to, if you do for a long time, is going to really positively impact you in your life, okay? Now let's go. I'm going to go grab my phone. Welcome, welcome.
John was looking for the link to get to the YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Let me send, it's Johnny?
Yeah.
All right. All right, there we go. One more piece. Okay, let's talk about it. Right here. Okay, one, yeah, throw the mic over to him.
Yeah, so just one?
Yeah, you're sharing one.
Yeah, going to bed at a specific time every day.
That is a great one. I love that one. I've been doing that for the last 3 weeks. It's been going great because I go to bed at 10:30 and I wake up and I go to the gym. That's the one thing that I've been doing. So that's a great one. All right, right here, Matt. Or Chelsea. You're going first?
One of mine that I said is just like better affirmations. I think as I take the time to tell myself better things about myself and about the world, that the world really will be better.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to say the gym as well.
Going to the gym?
Just working out consistently.
Okay, cool.
To add on top of all of those, for me, I think it is planning my day the night before is going to make a big difference for the
Cool.
rest of my life. Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. You have one you want to share?
Sure. I say read a book.
Read a book?
Every day.
That's awesome. This is a great one. Do you have one? I know you're kind of out and about,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
no worries. We're just one thing that you could do consistently that would have a positive impact in your life.
I think meditation and gratitude.
Oh, cool. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Perfect. Let's see. All right, so this book right here goes almost directly in line with some of the concepts in NLP. But to talk about those concepts, we got to talk about what is a state, right? So a mental and physical condition that a person experiences at any given moment. That includes your thoughts, your emotions, physical conditions, emotional responses, your beliefs. All of those are the state that you exist in. So I could have a state of being motivated, right? I can have a state of being resourceful, right? Welcome, welcome. So I'm curious, what are some other states that you guys can think of? Any ideas?
I suppose it could be positive or negative.
They could be, yeah, absolutely. Positive or negative. That's, yeah. Okay, so so now we also have anchors. An anchor is a stimulus that triggers a particular psychological or emotional state, right? So if somebody comes up to you and is like, hey, you won the lottery, what state do you choose to be in, right? It's if your kid comes to you and says, he hit me again, right? What state does that trigger for you, right? So anchoring is the process of associating an internal response with some external trigger. Triggers can be designed, so that's another fun thing, is that you can actually design the triggers that create states. So how powerful is that if you can design the trigger to create a state that you want to be in? So if you regularly find yourself not being resourceful, you can create a trigger, execute your trigger, and then you become resourceful. How powerful is that, right? You want to say something?
I was just going to say, I think I have a negative trigger sometimes because, when I get, I'm working at home. So like when I get a little bit bored or I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do next, I'm like, and then I just find myself in the kitchen. Like, I don't know how it happens. Anyway, I know. I walk
Absolutely,
there,
right?
But-
Like
but
that's
it's-
a trigger.
That's a trigger.
Right?
Yeah, and so, but another thing I don't do is drink very well. So I could, if I chose, to just say, okay, when I find myself in the kitchen, it means I need a drink of water. Like that kind of thing? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then we can work on designing them so that if you find yourself in the kitchen, you take a drink of water, then drinking water can be your trigger to become more motivated. Right? So every time you drink some water, you can be like, I'm going to be, we're going to set up how that works. But then you could be more motivated or more resourceful or whatever it is that you feel like you need more of. Right? Okay. So, oh yeah, right here.
So is it just a decision? Like, do you literally just say, I'm going to do this and that's the way that it is?
So there's 4 steps to it, and we cover those 4 steps in just a minute. So we're going to get to how do we create that trigger? How do we change whatever trigger it is that we have and turn that into the thing we want? Okay? So that's what this whole book is about, is associating stuff. So he doesn't necessarily go into like the NLP side of it, but it's like one-to-one translation between NLP and his book, right? He calls them slightly different things, but okay. So how do you know when it's time to sleep? All right, throw it out there.
The sun sets.
Okay, the sun sets.
You get tired.
You get tired. Okay, awesome.
Or you start bouncing off the wall.
You start bouncing off the walls. That's a good one.
I just look at the time.
You look at the time.
Yeah, and then I say, oh, it's 10 o'clock, I gotta get started. And then it takes me an hour to go to sleep. So, to get all my stuff done so I can go to sleep. Yeah.
Okay, so those are some of those things, right? How do you know when it's time to eat?
I'm hungry.
You're hungry, right? There's a sensation to it, right? How do you know when it's time to fight? Yeah, throw the box.
In the experience I've had with my brothers, you can just see it in their eyes.
Okay, all right, that's great. How do you know when it's time to be motivated? That's an interesting one, right? How do you know when it's time to be motivated, just like you know when it's time to sleep? Any ideas on that? Yeah, right over here. Let's just throw it.
I think that kind of my personal cue is I start to feel dissatisfied with
Okay.
my life or my productivity or my goals. There's like a level of internal discomfort or dissonance, and I'm like, okay, something's got to change, and I have to work harder towards this.
That's a great one. I love that. Does anybody else want to add to that? How do you know when it's time to be happy?
I'm breathing.
You're breathing. That's a great one. I love it. Just be happy all the time. How do you know when it's time to be sad?
When other people are sad.
Okay, all right, that's a big one. Yeah, when other people are sad.
I think you can base it on events. Like if you're at a funeral, that might be a good time to be sad.
Okay, cool. So all of these are all of those are triggers for different things, right? We get to later on. We're going to talk about actually right here. We're going to talk about setting anchors and having those be triggered at certain times. Okay, so the first step is we want to identify the desired state. So we want to figure out, okay, I want to be motivated over here, and so we just need to decide what is the end goal, what is the state that we're going into. Then we want to choose your anchor. Your anchor is that trigger. What is the thing that you know it's time to do this thing now whenever you do that? Now, that could be, we as humans, a lot of times we can use our sensations, our touches, You can, stick your fingers together and that means something to you because you set it up that way, right? Some people will grab their ear. And when they grab their ear, then it puts them into the state that they trigger in their ear. So if they're in a stressful situation and they want to be calmed, they can use their ear. They touch their ear. So we need to choose whatever that is. It could be a time trigger, it could be a physical trigger, it could be all sorts of triggers or anchors. And so we want to choose that. Then we're going to enter our desired state. So we're going to go through the process. This will be kind of a meditative process where you think about a time when you were naturally experiencing your desired state. Try to relive that experience as much as possible and in as much detail as possible. In doing this, we want to incorporate all 5 of our senses. The more you can feel that, the better this works, right? So then at the peak of that emotion, when you're experiencing that, do your thing, right? Right? So if it's a time-based trigger, then you'll want to you'll want to do this at the same time every day, right? We're going to do the same thing every day to get that trigger. But the point is that we go through this exercise of entering our desired state when we want that trigger to happen. Okay, so that is setting the anchor, and then we want to test our anchor. After a few moments, release the anchor, and let your mind clear. Then reapply the anchor, whether it's touching your knuckle or whatever it is, and see if the desired state returns. If it does, the anchor is successfully set. If not, then you want to repeat that process and do it a few times. Anyway, does anybody have questions on that process? Okay. So the reason I brought that up at the beginning is because he goes through these 4 sections in his book. The number 1 is the cue, trigger, anchor. Those are all the same things. So number 1 he talks about is making it obvious. Number 2 is making it attractive, which is creating a craving to do the thing you're supposed to do when the cue happens. The third thing is we want to make it easy. So we want to make it, in whatever situation we're at, we want to make it easy to accomplish the thing that we designed to do. And finally, we want to make it satisfying. So let's see, habit stacking. Now this is a really fun one because what we can do is we can take advantage of the cues that you're already doing in your life, right? If you wake up and you drink a glass of water, you can turn that into the cue for, okay, after I drink a glass of water, then I do this next thing, right? So for example, if you already have a habit of drinking a cup of coffee in the morning and you want to develop a new habit of meditation, you can stack the new habit onto the existing one. After I drink my morning coffee, I will meditate for 5 minutes. So that's habit stacking, and that can go a long way in terms of creating a set of different experiences you want, right? Now, on top of that, one of the things that I learned from William Lamb is that these triggers really can be almost anything, right? So one of the things that he has done is he says, when I'm not feeling well or if I'm not feeling motivated, I have set up a trigger that every time I'm not feeling motivated, then that's the trigger. The next step is I wonder about it, and then I get motivated. So he has from unmotivated to wonder to motivated. So is that crazy? That's this habit stacking process where, and that way he just is never unmotivated, because as soon as he feels unmotivated, it flows into wondering about it and then motivated. Yeah.
I would love to just point out that I think that this can be really effective with kind of mitigating triggers that we didn't intentionally set too. So like trauma responses.
Yeah.
Like in high school, I burned my foot really severely in some hot oil, some cooking oil. And from then on, every time I smelled that smell or heard the bubbling of the cooking oil, I would go into like a panic state.
Yeah.
And that was a trigger for me that I didn't set intentionally, but I was having a really hard time overcoming.
Mm-hmm.
And I stacked a separate habit and a separate trigger on top of that. And so like whenever I would be in that panic state because of that trigger, I would say, okay, there's a specific song I know I can listen to that will calm me down every single time, and I had never used it in that context. But stacking those two habits together, now I'm to the point, and a couple of years out from doing this, where I can be around that initial trigger that caused me to feel panic, and my body is kind of at the point where I almost don't even need to consciously enforce the second trigger, and it just becomes like so natural. So I think that this can also kind of help override some of the negative triggers.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. Okay, so a significant part of this is becoming aware of these, of these triggers in the first place. Like you said, those things maybe are unconscious. We want to become aware of the triggers and the outcomes so that we can work on adjusting those, right? Making those different. By bringing these to consciousness, we're better equipped to change them. He suggests starting with the simple habit scorecard, which is a list of each habit you follow on a daily basis, noting if it's beneficial, neutral, or detrimental. This exercise helps bring our daily actions into clear focus and aids in determining what needs to change. So we're going to do another question here. Can you reflect on your daily routine and identify specific triggers or cues that precede your habitual behaviors? These could be environmental factors, certain times of the day, emotional states, or other actions. For example, what prompts you to check your phone, take a coffee break, go for a walk, or indulge in a snack? So I want you to write down 3 triggers, and in the comments, I want you to write those down on a piece of paper, and then I want you to share one of these with the group when we get to it. So let's do a minute of thinking on that, and we will come back in just a second. Okay, let's go for it. Lauren, right? Let's start on this side of the room. Let's share one.
Okay, cool. One that I've noticed recently in my routine, there's like a couch that we have at our house, and I lay on it a certain way every time I'm gonna like sit down and watch a movie or watch a TV show, and I usually have like a salty snack at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I've been working from that couch because we're sharing the home office, and when he has to take a call, I'll like go out to the couch. And I've noticed that I'll like sit down on the couch and like get comfortable, and then I'm like, oh, I need something like a salty snack right now. And I think
Right.
I've started to kind of associate that. So I think that's one of my triggers, yeah.
Cool, awesome.
I think a trigger for me is I used to have an alarm on my phone that would go off at 10:14 at night every single night. And that was like my wind down alarm, like time to get ready for bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so now by default, when that comes around, my body already starts kind of processing, like I start feeling more tired, and I start like by default, I'm like, all right, I gotta start turning the TV off, or start turning the lights down a little bit, and kind of starting to get ready for bed. So
Cool.
doesn't
That's
even
awesome.
take the alarm anymore.
Okay, what do you think?
I say it will be when I'm done at work. That's my trigger to hit the gym.
Cool. That's a great one. Yeah, I love it.
Okay, so it used to be a trigger for me that if there was a conflict, then I'd get like stressed because I was thinking there was going to be a contention. But I think maybe it was one of your books or something. But anyway, I've realized now that the conflict, in other words, like just a difference of opinion, doesn't mean contention. So now I've kind of changed that over a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I have good ones and bad ones, but I'll say a good one because I'd rather do that. But waking up typically means making my bed.
Cool. Awesome.
I'll share a bad one. Going to the bathroom means pulling out my phone, and then I get derailed.
Yeah. Yep. I feel it. Yep.
So Johnny said when he's on his morning run and he passes a specific spot in the trail, it means he needs to meditate and pray. So that's
Cool.
That's a good thing.
That's a great one. I love it. What would you say?
For me, sometimes right when I wake up, if I don't immediately go do something, I might watch like a piece of a TV show, which might be a waste of time.
Okay. All right. So one of the ones for me is as I'm going about my day and I'm working on my computer, there's a lot of times when I have to wait for the computer to do the thing I asked, right? And so I have recently become aware that what will happen is, and it'll be 20 or 30 seconds, right? Not a lot of time, but I'll be like, oh, okay, and I pull out my phone, and then I start scrolling, and then I keep scrolling, and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah, I should get back to work, you know? And so I talked to my wife about this, and I was like, okay, so what if instead of having my phone on my desk while I'm working, because it never happens on my computer, I never go on social media on my computer for whatever reason, right? Just doesn't ever happen. But I do on my phone all day long. So around the corner, we have a whiteboard with a basket. And I was like, you know, if I just put my phone in the basket around the corner, it's going to be more effort for me to stand up and go get the phone. And that's probably going to take more than 30 seconds anyway. You know, this is going to save me so much time because, you know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour can go by without me even realizing it, right? So anyway, that's one of the triggers for me. I was like, okay, that's the trigger, is me waiting for my computer to do a thing, and then this is what happens. So that was me fixing that. And it's pretty easy. Yeah, right here.
Can I ask a personal question?
Yeah.
So what do you do at the time now? You have 20 or 30 seconds, you just sit there?
Yeah, actually, what I started to do is instead was think about my day, right? Think about what are the things I'm trying to accomplish. Think about, and so like as I go through that process, it's way better. Like it's way better for me to think about what is about to happen and how do I prepare for that? How do I anticipate the things that are going to happen instead of doom scrolling, right? Yeah. Okay, so number 2 in his book, second section, make it attractive. The more appealing or attractive or appealing a habit is, the more likely we are to follow through with it. Okay, so this goes into, we talked a little bit last week or a couple of weeks ago about some of the neurochemicals, neurotransmitters, but the role of dopamine. Dopamine is released not just when we experience pleasure, but also when we anticipate that we are going to enjoy something. You know, going to Disneyland, the joy of going to Disneyland for a lot of people is thinking about going to Disneyland for months beforehand, right? It's great.
Or Christmas.
Or Christmas, I'm kind of a Christmas person, but you're way more of a Christmas person than I am, right? So that anticipation is a powerful motivator for us in our actions. By making a habit attractive, we increase the anticipation of the reward, which in turn increases our motivation to perform the habit. Okay, the second section is temptation bundling. This is a technique where we link the action you need to do with an action you want to do. by pairing a habit that is good for you, but maybe not as appealing, like working out, with a habit you enjoy, like watching your favorite TV show, you make the less appealing habit more attractive. And on top of that, in that instance, it creates like a segmentation where if you only watch TV while you're working out, you actually have to finish working out. And then you're like, oh, I know that's the trigger for when I'm done watching TV. Does that make sense? Right. Okay. And the third piece is your social environment. James discusses how our habits are heavily influenced by the social norms of the culture and society groups we belong to. We're more likely to adopt habits that are considered attractive or desirable within our social circle. By surrounding ourselves with people who embody the habits we want to adopt, we make these habits more appealing and thus more likely to follow through with them. Right? So I want to do some more questions on this. Unless, do we want to go back at all? I do feel like I went through those a little quick.
Would you say that last one again?
Yeah, let's go back.
Yeah, so.
So basically, this is saying that if you can find other people who are doing the same things you're doing, or who are being the kind of people who you want to be, if you can figure out who those people are and start to interact with them, then you will become who they are through that process of just being around other people.
Kind of sounds like modeling.
Modeling. We talked about modeling the other day, right? 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's great. Okay. All right, so I want you guys to think of a positive habit you'd like to develop and pair it with something you already love doing, right? So there's that. Or are there any social groups or environments that you could join where your desired habit is the norm, making it more appealing for you to do that thing? All right, so let's think of 3 of these. I want you to write those down. And then let's think about one that you can share with the group. Okay. Should we start in the middle this time?
Sure. Well, I came up with a couple, but one that actually has really helped me is before COVID, I went to the gym a lot, but then we moved and all this stuff, and then I didn't have a gym close. But now I work out with people online where, like, I just pull up somebody's workout video, and because they're doing it, like, I'm way more apt to, like, go hard and like push myself, as opposed to like me being alone in my room just like trying to do 50 sit-ups or whatever. So that one has been good for me.
Cool. Thank you.
Mine was an exercise one too. I'm trying to run more in my life, and I do love to listen to books like this, and so probably just doing a book, or maybe even music, or listening to something while I'm running.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
I would say trying to connect more, get more inspiration and motivation from networking.
Cool. Yeah.
See what other options I can be inspired by.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
For me, what I've tried to do is surround myself, primarily with the types of people that are doing the kinds of things, and specifically that think the way that I want to think. So for example, if I want to have the mindset and thought process of somebody very successful, I need to surround myself with other people that are very successful, and I can adopt those same habits, traits, and that same mindset as well. So
Yeah, cool. I love it. That's fantastic.
So I studied communications in school for 2 years, and then I took a pretty solid break from school. And part of my motivator in going back to school, I just started back this summer semester, and part of my motivation for that was that I felt like I didn't really have a group of people I could talk with about the things I was interested in, especially in the field of communication. I'm in a media studies class right now, and everything we talk about is so intriguing in there, and it's great because there are people in there that also care about it, and I don't just have to talk Alex's ear off about all of it. And, so I think kind of pursuing environments like this, educational environments where people are willing to learn the same thing, even if you can't necessarily, learn, like, not everybody has to be objectively, smarter or further along or more successful to be able to learn from them. So
Yeah, absolutely.
even in a room where everyone's kind of at the same spot, but they all have the same learning goal, I think that can be kind of an example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Any comments online?
Yeah, Anna just barely put a trigger getting distracted by my cell phone or TV, or trying to get into the cleaning mode. So that's one thing.
Cool.
And then for myself, I think getting to bed at 9 o'clock every day would be great for me in my life. I don't really see going to bed as a social activity, at least for me in my life. So.
Okay.
Is there something you could pair it with that you already love doing?
As to pair it with something that I already love doing.
Could you have like music playing in the background that turns itself off after a bit? I know you love music.
I do love music. It could be something that I try.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Can I say one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I noticed that I was taking extremely long showers, and we've started doing like cold shots at the end of our showers or whatever. And so one day I like took a 15-minute shower, and I was like, that's way too long to be showering for anyone. And so I set a goal that my timer would go off after 5 minutes, and like I had to finish the rest of my shower cold. So basically the last 2 days I have actually showered in under 5 minutes, and then had to just like give myself a cold shot just because I do it anyway. But I like that whole pairing. I just realized that I actually have done that once in my life in this week, so there's that.
That's awesome. Very good. Matt, you have any thoughts there?
The habit that I'd like to read a lot more and actually read. I've tried the whole listening to books, and I don't get anything out of it as much. I can listen to a story, but like a book like this, I've listened to this book, knew it was good, but I'm like, I need to study it. But I can't. I know the social thing would be to join a book club or to get some other people to read it with you.
Just come here,
Come here, read it, right? But as far as pairing it, I'm not really sure what I can pair it with.
Okay. I mean, some of the things I could think of are, as you're sitting there reading your book, maybe you make yourself comfortable, right? And so then you enjoy reading more because it's comfortable.
Chocolate.
I will fall asleep if I.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll throw the mic to Lauren there.
No, you're fine. So I used to love to, I loved to read for fun, but I had a harder time reading kind of like school assignments and stuff in high school. And I used to have at my desk, I had a normal chair, kind of like one of these, like an office chair. And then I had like a separate chair, and it was a hard chair, like a table, like a dining table chair. It was wooden. And that was like my reading chair. And so every time I would sit to my desk, because I'm the same way, I would fall asleep if I tried to read like in bed or on the couch or whatever. But if I was sitting in that specific chair, then that was my body's like, okay, you're going to read right now. And that was super beneficial for me. And then I also wanted to comment on the going to bed earlier thing. my freshman year of college, I was the worst at that. I would go to bed at like 3 in the morning. And it was because the people that I was hanging out with were staying up that late and then sleeping in till, noon every day and skipping the classes and stuff. And they were great friends to, to be around and have fun with, but they weren't prioritizing getting a good night's sleep. And so for me, I mean, I don't know if this applies to you or not, but for me, finding a new group and hanging out more with like specific roommates that I had that were also going to bed at the same time eliminated for me that FOMO of, oh, I can't go to bed yet, or because all my friends are going to be doing stuff. And so that was helpful for me.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say something that I like, and it's what you did with that chair that this book talks about, is having a place for your things. Like, this is my working place. And I've just found that to be particularly difficult when you have like a 2-bedroom apartment. It's like, this is my office, my bedroom, and where, it's like all these different things. So, but it's good to have like, that's my uncomfortable chair and I'm going to read for 20 minutes. Like, I don't want to sit in it any longer.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so we talked about the cues and our triggers. We talked about the craving to make it attractive. So now we're going to talk about making it easy. The easier a habit or action is to do, the more likely we are to perform it. So in physics, we have Newton's laws. And one of those is that an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will stay in motion. So this can be applied to habits as well, right? As we're doing our jobs or as we're doing our actions, if we're already in the mode of doing those things, it's a lot easier to just keep doing those things, right? But we can have triggers that pull us off that path. And so as we get better at seeing those triggers, we're able to remove those and we can just keep going, right? Once a habit is initiated, it's likely to continue. Making the initiation as easy as possible increases the likelihood that the habit will be performed. So we can also talk about getting started in 2 minutes. So this strategy suggests downsizing a new habit to a behavior that takes 2 minutes or less to do. The idea is not to master the entire habit from the beginning, but to master the act of showing up. So for example, if you're trying to read a book, start by just reading 1 page. Right? And then you just say, okay, well, I'm good. Or use this momentum to keep reading, right? Because now you're starting to be a reader. Yeah, you got the mic right there.
Okay, just really quick. One thing I want to point out is, what's his name? Jordan Peterson. Okay, thank you. So Jordan Peterson, he's a therapist and talks a lot about a lot of things. But one of the things that he mentions with this is the importance of, like, basically, well, he kind of says it in a different way, but I took it to mean, like, the importance of celebrating when you've done what you said you were going to do. Because, like, because it's easy to be like, I'm going to read for 1 minute, knowing, like, oh, this really means I'm going to read for 20 minutes, and then you only read for 15, and you're like, oh, I'm such a loser, like, I only read for 15 minutes, when it's, like, actually read for, like, a minute. So, like, be proud of yourself for that. And he says, as you try and build on things, like, allow yourself sometimes to just say, I'm going to read for a minute, and then when the minute's up, if you're like just like celebrate that you did that, and that's like, or the book or whatever it is, so,
right.
Or the page. So anyway, that's just one thing I wanted to like throw in there, like make sure you celebrate yourself.
That is, thank you for that comment, I appreciate it. All right, I want to celebrate something right here, right now. Okay, so in the beginning, my goal for this was, I said, I'm going to do this for 6 weeks to start with, right? Like that. So this is week 6. So celebration of doing 6 different events every week, and we're going to keep going with it. But there.
Great.
So anyway, my next goal, what?
Congratulations.
Thank you. My next goal is I would love to figure out how to get 100 people to come and be a part of an event. Whether it's online, I imagine that would be mostly online, but I'd love to see that 100 people have interacted with my event. So anyway, if you have any ideas on how to make that happen, come chat with me. Let's see. The role of your environment. James Clear emphasizes the importance of environment design and making habits easy. A well-designed environment can make beneficial behaviors easier to adopt and detrimental behaviors more difficult to perform. The goal is to make the cues of good habits obvious and the actions easier. So Alex Hormozi talks about a statistic where something like 60% of people in Vietnam tried cocaine, right, or heroin. It was heroin. And after they got home, 90% of people never did it again, right? So now what's really curious is that here, if we, people who go into rehab, like 90% of those people relapse and go back into go back into their old habits. So what is the difference between the two, right? The main difference is that in Vietnam, it was Vietnam, and there was, soldiers and all sorts of things were all happening, and coming home, it's an entirely different place, right? So your environment has a huge impact on what you do, right? So it's really important to take a look at your environment and see, is my environment conducive to me getting the goals that I want? Is my environment conducive to being able to achieve the things I want to achieve? Are there a bunch of distractions in my environment that keep popping up? I know for me in my home office, I have 5 kids that walk around the corner and every one of them is cute. And I'm like, hey, I want to just give you all the love, but I'm working, So that's probably one that eventually I'm going to work on figuring out. Okay, so let's think about it. Can you think of a habit you've been trying to establish but found challenging? And how could you simplify this habit or reduce the friction associated with starting it to make it easier and more approachable? Okay, so let's think about that for 1 minute. Maybe think of 1 or 2 or 3 things and 1 to share. Okay, let's have this. And let's start over here this time. What do you say? Is there anybody online saying anything?
Yeah, well, not to this particular prompt.
Okay, no worries.
So for me, some of the friction I have, so one of my goals is actually to get to the gym every morning. And the reason why I want to go to bed earlier is because there's a lot of friction when I get up, or I'm
Right.
like, I just need another 2 hours of sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then, I sleep 2 hours, I get up, it's almost time for work, I just go to work, right?
Right.
So to reduce friction and simplify that behavior or habit, going to bed earlier, I think is the key.
Cool. That's awesome. And another thought on that is, have you considered just reordering some of the things, right? Maybe you sleep in and then you go to work, and then like he said, after you're done with work, that's how you know it's time to go to the gym, right?
That could be a thing.
I mean, you figure it out, but just
Yeah,
could be reordering that to make it a little simpler, right?
that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, one that I've struggled to be consistent with is planning my day. And one of the problems is because we're best friends and like to talk all night when we're home. And so I even am thinking that maybe I don't try to plan my day at the end of my day, but that I take time maybe before she gets home or just in the middle of my day, plan the next day.
Cool. I love it.
One of mine is going to bed on time, and kind of like you said, we like to talk. So I just thought if I go to bed by the time that I'm trying to, I can pay myself $2.
Cool.
And that it's outside of the budget that I normally set, and it's those $2 are me to do whatever the heck I want with.
Okay. No, I love it. That's great.
And for me, there's a lot of friction around, deep cleaning.
Okay.
A lot of times what happens is somebody's going to come over, so we got to clean the house, and
Right.
that's what happens. And so, but reading this book actually has really helped me a lot to be able to just not have that global thinking, all of a sudden I have to do the whole, I have to do the whole bathroom. And so simplifying it would just be, okay, so my goal is to clean 2 minutes in the bathroom, on a Wednesday. And I have and I really have now every single day, I'm going to clean for 5 minutes, and that's a lot better than nothing. So
Yeah.
that's
That's great. I love it. That's fantastic.
Say challenging will be jogging, just to get out and start jogging. Say the best way to simplify it is start walking
Cool.
and extend the walk till you start jogging.
I love it. That's fantastic. Good job.
So for me, I used to be very, very, very religious as far as my morning routine goes. And I was really good at waking up early, whether it's at 5 a.m. or 5:30. I was getting up, consistently, and then I'd get up and I'd go work out, and then I'd come back, get ready, eat breakfast, and go to work. But when work gets to a point where it's at right now, where it's a little bit more crazy, I get more exhaustion. So it's a little bit harder for me to get in a rhythm, waking up at the same time and going to the gym at the same time every morning. So I've been trying to get back into that habit and asking myself the questions of, okay, what got me into that habit in the first place? It's the things like, getting the clothes ready the night before, or the night before I could create a plan as to what my workout's going to be the next morning.
Right.
So I already have a level of commitment to go do that thing in the morning, rather than just turning off my alarm when it goes off in the morning and coming up with some excuse. So it's those same kinds of things. And I think it even talks about something like that in Atomic Habits, about laying your clothes out the night before, or putting your shoes out. I think Atomic Habits talks about leaving your shoes out, or starting a habit. If you're trying to get in the habit of running, just get in a habit of putting your shoes on first, and let that be the step one, and then just kind of keep going from there. But that's kind of where I'm at. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
So I've been recovering from a foot surgery, pretty much consistently from several different foot surgeries over the last 4 years.
Ooh.
And I've gotten out of the habit of being active. I have not really built back up my endurance and my strength, because I just feel like it's one thing after another that's been happening. And I was reflecting on this, and I actually saw something about this last night with a creator that I follow on Instagram, and she was posting about how she's a mom of a bunch of young kids, and she has a really hard time getting up and going to the gym every morning and being active. And she talked about how she has kind of tried to rid herself of the expectations that she was imposing on herself, because she would get up and run up and down the stairs for 5 minutes, and that's all she would have time for in the morning. And then later that day she'd be like, oh, well, that didn't count. I didn't put my gym clothes on. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't do a workout with my my water bottle on the
Right.
machines or whatever. And then she was like, okay, I need to, kind of like what you're saying, give yourself credit for what you've done and just do a little bit at a time. And so now she'll get up and she'll just put her shoes on and work out in her pajamas in the morning before the kids get up. And so I think that sometimes we place these like qualifiers on, oh, it's not the habit I want until it's this. And I think kind of ridding ourselves from those qualifiers starting out will make it more approachable.
Cool. Thank you. The thing that I've been trying to establish and I have found it challenging, but I have still been able to do it, is for the last, I'm not sure, it's probably about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month. I have gotten up in the morning and I've gone swimming. And so I've swam at least 100 yards every morning. There have been several times whenever I'm so tired, I get up and I'm like, it's just going to be the 4 laps. That's the 100 yards. And so I do that and I get out and I'm like, it was a lot of effort for me to get up, go get in the car, drive to the pool, drive home, shower and all of that. But I've been very happy because it's been consistent, right? It's just been every day. And I found that, that's been a great thing for me. Okay, so the last thing is making it satisfying. And I will say that, there's been several times when I'm, swimming up and down, just, lightly going through that process, not like super like sprinting in the swimming, but just like on your back, swimming back and forth. It's been satisfying. And so that's probably one of the pieces that's helping me go back every time, is because I'm like, it really does feel good to work out your body. And I think for me at least, swimming is low impact and it's working great in terms of making it satisfying to do things. So we're more strongly motivated by immediate rewards than future rewards due to the instant gratification. Therefore, if we want to make our habit stick, we need to make it immediately satisfying. This may involve pairing the habit with a positive experience or reward, or simply finding joy in the process itself. So that's like really important for, as we are going through this process, making the habits that we're doing very satisfying, right? Tracking and measurement. Tracking your habits and seeing progress is a source of immediate satisfaction. If we can see that the graph is climbing or whatever it is that we're using to track it. I know Chelsea uses a habit tracker. I think it's called Habit Tracker, right? Yeah, the habit. And I've been using it as well. And I think that's a great way to track what it is that you're doing, especially if they're those little things. You can just check it off. By visually you're tracking your habits, for example, marking an X on a calendar, you not only reinforce the behavior, but also provide yourself with visible evidence of your progress, which is also satisfying. And then you can have the motivating effort of saying like, well, I haven't missed yet. So if I miss today, it's more satisfying to keep it going. This immediate feedback creates a sense of satisfaction and reinforces the habit loop. So how can you add an element of immediate satisfaction or reward to a positive habit you're trying to develop? Or can you think of a way to track your progress that would provide immediate feedback and a sense of achievement? So let's think of 3, and we'll share one. Okay, Should we start over here?
So what I was finding at my home office work was that oftentimes I would spend a lot of time on one thing, and like almost the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I got 1 or 2 things done, and I was a little disappointed because I spent so much time on it. And so now I'm doing the habit pairing. What did you call that? How you put one on stacking? Yeah. And so now what I'm doing is I have an hour and a half, and then at the end of the hour and a half, I'm choosing to do one of my new goals, like I go on and do my 5 minutes of cleaning, or I go and do my exercise at the end of the other hour and a half. And what is really satisfying for me is that I am checking it off at the end of the night. And so I'm looking at that and I'm like, dang, I'm good. Oh, I don't usually say that, but yeah, I'm good. It's amazing.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, what do you think?
I said taking my meds daily,
Cool.
checking it off. If I do, 7 days of med, probably treat myself to some dessert.
Cool. That's awesome. Glad to hear it.
I've always struggled with this. You can ask my wife. I'm terrible at it. So, I haven't really come up with a good one, I'll be honest. So, Lauren has a really good one, though. She'll say.
He has
She's got,
a.
4 really good ones.
He's really good at setting really good habits, but he's not very good at rewarding himself for
Right.
achievements. But,
Right. Well, on that thought real quick, maybe you just enjoy the process. Maybe you're doing it because you're enjoying the process, and so that is the reward, right? So maybe just having that paradigm shift of like, I am rewarding myself because I love doing the things I'm doing.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Amen.
So for me, I actually just kind of developed this little system for myself a couple days ago. And I was scrolling. Sometimes when I'm sick of social media, I'll scroll on Amazon instead. And I'm like, oh, I want this and I want this. It's like window shopping from my couch. But I was like kind of building up a list of like, this is stuff that I want. And the next holiday that I would get any gift from anybody is Christmas. And I was like, I don't want to wait that long to get that stuff. And then I was like, well, why do I feel like I can't, get it for myself? And then I was like, well, I should tie it to something. And so I kind of listed out a couple of the main things that I want to get, or things that I, want to kind of treat myself to. And I associated them they're all associated with the same goal, which is going to the gym twice a week.
Cool.
But they're different lengths of time. And so it's like, if I go to the gym twice a week for 3 weeks, I can get this. And then if I do it for another 4 weeks, I can do this. And one thing that I just barely thought of a couple minutes ago when you asked, that I used to use a lot and that I stopped using, there's this app called Capital, and it's spelled with a Q instead of a C.
Okay.
And it can connect to your Apple Watch or whatever fitness tracking watch you have. And you can set up rules where if you've completed your fitness goal in your Apple Watch for the day, it'll deposit $5 from your main account into a specific savings account that you can set up in the app. And so I think that's what I'm gonna do. And then, that way it's like, I know that as soon as I put my Apple Watch on and start tracking that workout, I've got $5 or however much I want to set up closer to that incentive that I've set for myself.
That's awesome. That's great. I love to hear it. Let's go right here.
I got distracted thinking about how great that was, and I don't remember.
Okay, no worries.
I'll try and think about it.
It's interesting, and I want to ponder on why some things work and some don't, because I'm using this habit app as well, and I have a lot of goals that I'm tracking on it, and some, I think because I've been doing them for so long, it's like there's no way I'm missing it, and then there's others it's just kind of like, and I still track it, I'll check that I missed it, but it's like, I don't care as much. And so it's interesting, like the cold shower thing. I'm like, I think I'm around 100 days in a row, like, and I'm like
Nice.
not missing, you know. And so that one is like, for some reason, very rewarding, and maybe it's because I'm proud of it compared to like, oh, I planned my day 90 days in a row. Maybe it doesn't feel as cool. I don't know.
Right. There's a social element to it.
Yeah, maybe it's my pride. So maybe figure out how to tailor it to my pride. But, and so I like this because she's been doing it, and I've seen it work really well for her, and you just mentioned it, but kind of paying yourself a little reward of, you know, then I can go golfing or something like that, like something that I wouldn't normally do.
I'll
And
go
so
with you.
I think that's yeah, let's go. But I think that's the thing that I need to try next.
Cool. Awesome. Do we have anybody online that's answered any of that?
Yeah, so John Troy sent 2 texts to you. I didn't put it in the chat. And while you're maybe checking that, I can go for one of mine. So a reward for myself for going to bed, I mean, like getting in bed by like 9:30, for example. Maybe I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. I was thinking maybe I put like a bowl of chocolates there, but that might not be the best thing for my routine. Maybe after I wake up, you know, I'll have a chocolate and then
So what
brush
happens
my
is if
teeth.
you go to bed on time, then, you know, you put it in the thing, and then when you wake up, if there's a chocolate there, then you can have it.
Sure. Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
Oh,
Right?
John did text me. One of the things that I found that really works well for me is if I do anything at all on my goal or make even the smallest incremental improvement, then I say, hey, you did that thing, well done. And if I get a first bump in the air over that and say it out loud, it's actually a very powerful motivator.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Yeah.
So to your point, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but motivation kind of comes in waves for me, and I'll be in like a super motivated state, and I'll set like all of these goals, and I'm like, I'm gonna set all of these new habits, and kind of lumped all together, it's like a totally completely different lifestyle from the lifestyle I'm currently living. And so I kind of resonated with when you said that you're working on kind of tracking a lot of different habits, and some of them are working out and some of them aren't. It made me think of, I don't know if you've read, I'm sure you have, or if you're going to talk about in the future essentialism, but there's kind of a chart in there that shows like you, and then there's lines going in different directions, and you can make a little bit of effort in all of these different directions, and you're going to get like an inch away, right? Or you can make all of your effort at once in one direction, and you're going to go 6 inches in that direction. And so that was kind of a turning point for me, where I was like, maybe I was being a little bit too ambitious compared to what was realistic for me to set as habits. And so for me, it's like, what do I want to do right now? And then maybe when it gets to the point of like the cold showers for you, then it's like, okay, I feel confident, I've set this habit, I feel ready to work on
The next one.
another one. But sometimes for me personally, I get overwhelmed by trying to set too many new
Right.
habits all at once. So
Yeah. So I want to make sure that the habits we're setting are small and that they're incremental so that you can make sure that it happens. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so one of the things that he talks about, and this is not necessarily in any particular chapter, but he talks about the most effective way to change your habits is to change your perception of yourself, that is your identity. So instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, the outcome-based habits, focus on what you want to become. So identity habits, right? And so this goes back to our NLP concept of how do I become the person that this thing is easy and effortless to achieve, right? And so that's the question I ask myself so often is, how do I become the kind of person that achieves this thing easily and effortlessly? So that's what he's talking about here, is changing your identity into somebody else. For example, instead of setting a goal to read 20 books in a year, try to adopt the identity of just a reader, somebody who just reads, right? This shift in perspective can make your habits more sustainable because they become an integral part of your identity. And we want to avoid perfection. One slip up is not a big deal. It's important to avoid the mentality of I missed today, so I might as well give up, right? Instead, aim for consistency, not perfection. As James says, never miss twice. If you miss one day, make sure you get back on track the next day. And so I want to, my wife has been doing Duolingo now for 450 days. Yeah, and so it is amazing for me because I'm like, that is awesome. Way to go, dear. So, and I don't know exactly what the number is, but it's in the between 400 and 500 days, and it tracks how often. So she has the same streak. So that's awesome. Okay, so let's wrap up a little bit. Do we have any questions? I know we covered a lot of things, but do we have any questions from our topics today or questions about your business? Anyway, raise your hands if you have questions.
One question I have.
Let's get you the mic real quick.
It's a silly question. I just want to know if I can have your your PowerPoint. Yeah,
My PowerPoint?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. In the comments, if you'd like to get the PowerPoint, put it in the comments. I'll just send it to you.
Thank you.
But if you are if you're in the live stream, put in the comments, I'd like the PowerPoint, and I can send it to you. So, absolutely.
I love it. That's so great. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to go around the room once and just ask, what did you get from today? So let's start right there. Let's start right here.
Wow, I got a lot of stuff from today. I actually just took a picture of all of the different things so I could remember them over and over again. Make it fun, make it simple, I don't remember them all, so that's.
Should we go back real quick?
Yeah, do.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, that's it. Make it
obvious. Make it obvious what the cue is. Make the craving attractive, right? Make it attractive. Make it easy to do your habit, and make it satisfying so you keep coming back, right?
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Okay. Yeah, let's hear it. What'd you get from today?
I said we'll be taking small, actionable steps towards something bigger.
Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic.
I think just remembering the simplicity of habits, and sometimes you overthink it, sometimes you think it's much more complicated and we get in our heads about it. But I think remembering, just one step at a time, and and also trying to make sure that those habits work with human nature, not against it. Because
Right.
sometimes I myself try to work against my own nature to try to start a new habit or try to, create a rhythm. But when in fact it'll be much more effective if I just go with what my nature is. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think kind of unrelated note, I generally just struggle with motivation. I don't feel consistently motivated to do very much ever. And so I think that the kind of the cues and the making it easy, that gives me a sense of hope that I can still set habits and I can have discipline and consistency even when there's no motivation. And so, or I guess because that creates motivation, I guess,
Right.
is what I'm trying to say. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Matt, what do you think? What'd you get from today?
Just the good reminder, I kind of joked about, and I think when I read this book, I really did just kind of write it off in my mind, like, oh, well, it's nice that you have a big house, that you can have your workroom and your exercise room and your, and he has, his phone doesn't have any work stuff, and then his tablet doesn't have any personal stuff, like he just has everything siloed. But even, you talking about once you sit on that couch, it's almost like Pavlov's
Pavlov's
dog,
dogs.
where it's like, I need something salty. And it really is true that everything that we do is a trigger. And so anyways, the thing that I need to do is circle back to that and determine what can I do with the space that I have to make my triggers positive in the way that I want them, because everything goes back to them. So if there's something negative, it's probably because of my environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think I really loved the concept of having a trigger that leads to an action, that leads to an action, that leads to an action, and creating your life in a way that where you have systems that are built to carry you from beginning to end in a way that will produce the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. And to that point, it's been said, you fall to the level of your habits. You rise. So I don't remember exactly how it goes, but basically it talks about your systems and your habits and how you fall to the level of your systems and you rise to the level of your habits. So it's important to, maybe I got that reversed, I don't know, but so it's important to work on both of those, getting those habits to turn into systems so that you can have it be more consistent. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's presentation, I'd love if you follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/John Krazik. Part of why I'm doing all of this is to grow my YouTube channel. So I would love if you subscribe over there. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. And I would appreciate that. That's one of those things that I'm getting enjoyment from. Going back to, that's one of my thoughts that I had about that last question that I asked you guys is I am enjoying being able to communicate with everybody here in the room, right? So me coming out to these events, me putting on these events, I'm enjoying being able to talk to everybody one-on-one, right? Or talk to them in person and things like that. So anyway, that concludes my book today on James Clear's Atomic Habits. Oh, yeah, right here.
So I noticed like a few weeks ago you put your Venmo up there, but now I'm not seeing it, but I might want to give you some money, so.
Okay, well my Venmo is Venmo at John Krazik, so same thing there. But also, I think what I decided in that was I was like, I think right now I would prefer subscribers over money, right? So I'm working on trying to grow my subscribership, and so what is the thing that I'm calling to action to is actually it's more important for me to find subscribers than it is for me to get money just
from
right
this
at the moment.
action,
From this, from this experience. So that's what I'm asking for right now. That's my call to action is if you haven't subscribed to me, go ahead and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And moving forward, we're going to have more of it. So I think in the future, I'm interested in also bringing in other people so we have more of like an interview experience. So put in the comments if there's topics or people that you'd like me to bring on to have more of an interview experience as opposed to just a book. So anyway, that is where we're at today. Thanks so much for joining, and I will see you next week.